Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew. Yesterday we talked about male preferences, men's preferences when it comes to finding a woman to marry. Today we're going to talk about women's preferences. Now, you and I both know the group of women I'm going to be talking about a lot in this video. However, before I talk about that group, I do want to say that I do know that there are women out there still that still have reasonable expectations when it comes to dating a man and what that man should make and be and all that type of thing. I know someone personally right now who's in the who's looking for a man. All she wants is a man that makes a minimum $40,000 a year. She'd prefer more, obviously, but that's like her cutoff point. And I think that's reasonable. I think that, she works as well, and she would, put her finances together with the man, and they could make a small but comfortable empire for themselves. It wouldn't be the largest empire ever, but it would be more than a lot of people get. I think that's a reasonable expectation. I also know women, for instance, that kind of go against the whole, I want a man that's 6 foot or taller. I've talked to women, and I've worked it out, or I have a hunch. I don't know if this is true or not. I've never asked any of them this. I should, actually. Maybe I will after this. But these women generally only want a man that's like maybe 2, 3, 4 inches taller than they are. My theory is that if they're wearing high heels, they want the man to be at least that same height as they are at that point. And they're good with that. And some of these women are like 5 foot nothings, little tiny things. I'm 6 foot, and by the way, I'm a natural 6 foot. I'm not like 5 foot 11 and a half inches or 11 3/4 inches. No, I'm 6 foot. So that's really small to me, but I think for them that's reasonable. I think that's not asking a lot. And so there are those women out there. Now, are there women with much less reasonable expectations? Oh, yes, of course there are too. That being said, I would be interested if anyone has any information that shows, or gives an indication of what percentage each of those categories of women are. I would be very interested in that. Now, I know that there are some women out there that are completely reasonable in their expectations. I know there are some women out there that are completely unreasonable in their expectations. I don't know what percentage each of those are in terms of the female population. I think there's a bias that's happening right now where there are a lot of, in the manosphere, yet another label that I just, okay, fine. I mean, it's already being used to dismiss anything that pops up in that area because apparently men can't talk about these things. Or we shouldn't be allowed to, I guess, would be a better way of putting that. But there are videos out there. I'll give you an example. I was watching a video, not last week, but the week before, I think. It was a video where the guy had gone on a bunch of dating apps and found like some of the most unrealistic expectations that women had on these apps. Now, that man in that video is not going to include, women with reasonable expectations, because the whole point of the video is about the ones with unreasonable expectations. That being said, that kind of people watch that, and although he may not have meant to do this, and I don't even think it's his fault, because generally speaking, I think that how you interpret something is on you, not him. But it gives this false sense that there may be way more of these unrealistic ones than there actually are. Like, you don't know how long he took to find these. You don't know how many he sifted through that weren't unrealistic. And he's looking for the extreme examples. In the same way, on a podcast, if you've got a bunch of people and you want conversation and argument between them, you're going to want people from the extremes. You're not going to want as many people from the middle. 1 or 2 people from the middle, perfectly okay, perfectly reasonable, but for the most part, you generally want people from the extremes, because you're going to get more heated debates, you're going to get more arguments and stuff like this. Little Shadow Tail in the corner there. Shadow's my cat. He sometimes pops up in these videos. So there are women out there that, even in the West, are still reasonable. What percentage of women are that? I couldn't even hazard a guess. I have no idea. I think the idea of how many are unreasonable are slightly inflated. However, I don't know. Maybe I just hope that not every woman is, well, obviously not every woman is insane. My hope is that there are more women out there that aren't, that are, than are, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So, that being said, there are reasonable women out there. I'm not saying with the rest of this conversation that there aren't reasonable women out there. Bravo to those women, by the way. They're more in touch with, what their value is, and they are, I believe, way more likely to find a husband and be very successful and happy than these women that are, well, to be blunt, delusional. Now, generally these women that have unreasonable expectations, they want, it's the whole 6 figures, 6 foot. There's another 6 in there, but I'm not even going to talk about that one. My cat's playing with stuff in my closet. You might hear some banging and stuff. Don't worry about it. It's just him being a cat. Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy. But yeah, so is it unreasonable for a woman to ask for 6 figures and for a man to make 6 figures or more a year, and to be 6 foot? It can be. A lot of it depends on the woman and her value. So if you're a woman and you're a 9 or a 10, but are really a 9 or a 10, not a delusional 9 or a 10, but are actually a 9 or a 10, some of the most beautiful women in the world, that may be a reasonable ask for you. The higher you are in value, the more you can ask for, because men want you, and so you have more power and choice. It's the same for the men that are at the top. Most women want them, they have power to choose. And believe me when I say choice is power. Because if they don't like what you're offering them, there's a lineup of a million other women behind you. And they'll find someone better than you, or they can find someone better than you. So that's not unreasonable. But is it reasonable for a woman who's like, let's say, a 3, 4, 5, 6 in the dating marketplace to want a man that makes 6 figures and is 6 foot taller or taller? Probably not. Definitely not. Let's be real. You would have to shine in some other areas that you could shine in. You may shine in, but generally speaking, it's unlikely. But let's talk numbers for a second. Interestingly enough, I think for the women that I've seen, I wish more men would do a follow-up question, because a lot of these men that are interviewing these women about their expectations for a guy. Now, again, are they showing you every woman and their expectations, or are they just showing you the one that fit what they're trying to say is most women? You see the problem. I mean, it's less interesting. It doesn't fire men up as much when they see all these women, that they would see women that are really like, oh, I want this and this. Like, it's nice when you see those. It's actually like, oh, thank God there's someone who's, oh, look, reasonable. That woman, by the way, now becomes way more attractive to an average guy. But is she into an average guy? That's the question. But I digress. There would be a really good follow-up question for these women. Ask a woman how much a man would have to make in order to, be her man. If she says six figures or more, Then ask the woman what percentage of men make more than 6 figures, or make 6 figures or more. What percentage do they think? The people who have asked this, and bravo to them, because it's very, very clever that you ask this, a lot of these women think it's like 40% of men that make 6 figures or more. No, nowhere near. I've heard answers anywhere from, most women think it's anywhere from like 30 to 50% of men. Cut that in half. At the most, 15% make 6 figures. Depends on the country. It ranges anywhere from just under 10% to 15%, again, depending on the country. And I'm specifically talking about North America and Europe here. So that's not a lot of men. Okay. What if we add 6 feet or taller to that? Men that make 6 figures or more and are 6 feet or taller are 1%, approximately, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but approximately 1% of the population of each country. But who's in that group? Well, that's all men that are 6 foot and or more and make 6 figures or more. So you have to take out the married men. You have to take out, men that are gay, not interested in you. There are other men that will just not be interested in you because you got to take out the fat and the ugly ones, right? Because, well, some women will marry men if they're ugly, just for their money. But a lot of women, need some looks too. So even less than 1% is what we're talking about here. But just for the sake of argument, I'm just going to say 1%. I'm going to give you 1%. We know on dating websites that 80% of women are trying to get the top 20% of men. However, if you ask any of that 80% of women, they really, 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 really want that 1% guy. There's 1% of guys and 80% of women. I'm not good at math. In fact, I suck at math. But that's like 79% of women that won't get that. Okay. So they'll settle for the other top 19%, right? So 80% of women wanting 20% of men, that means 60% of women aren't going to get it, right? Approximately. I know there's slightly more women to men, and I'm making it easy and approximate. I know it's more complicated, but that's the easy numbers. So 60% of women are not going to succeed, or they're going to get to the point where the men has multiple partners. That's where it's coming to. If you think you're going to, especially if we're talking about the 1%, if you think as a woman you're going to be the only woman in that man's life, most of them don't even marry. A lot of them don't marry. If they do marry, it's because they marry someone that was part of their life and helped build their empire, not that came in afterwards to try and latch on afterwards. That's how they see it. That's just what it is, unfortunately. And so if every woman is throwing themselves at them, why would they choose one woman? They could have a different woman every day of the week if they want, and they do, and they can. So again, there's no real reason for them to say, yes, I'm going to marry you. Now, if you're a spectacular woman, if you're a 9 or a 10, then yeah, absolutely. If you bring value like they haven't seen before, if you bring some sort of value that makes you special compared to other women that they're looking at, yeah, they'll marry you. Will they be completely faithful to you? Probably not. Some women are okay with that because they've got that guy. Some women wouldn't be. That's up to the woman. Here's the problem. Women are very delusional when it comes to this, and there are many reasons for this. Number one, women tell other women that they're worth more than they actually are. This is not a problem with men. Men are very honest with other men about where they fit in the the marketplace. They just are. Men have to be honest about this, because if they become delusional themselves, reality hits like a bitch. And quite honestly, they know what it feels like, because I guarantee at some point they've been smacked by reality, and so they don't try to set other men up for it. I think some women I think women are trying to make other women feel better about themselves by saying, yes, you're a 10, go queen. But that's setting them up for failure. So in the long run, are they going to feel better about themselves when they think they're 10s and they're going for 10s and the 10's like, you get away from me? Is that better for them? I don't think so. But that is what's happening a lot. And there's this whole idea that all women are 10s. Reality, ladies. Reality. If 5 is the average, that means that there are going to be some 1s, there are going to be some 10s. That means there's going to be some 2s and some 9s. There's going to be some 3s and 4s. There's going to be some 6s and 7s and 8s and the rest. Most of you are 5s. That's kind of sort of usually how the average works. I've never been good at math, but I'm pretty sure that's how that works. I'm not saying that there aren't 6, 7, 8, 9s, and 10s out there. I'm not saying that. A lot of you think you're that, and you're not. And unfortunately, that is because you believe you are, that's setting you up for failure. And, that, like I said, women play a part of that. Men do too, actually. A lot of women, especially the ones that think they're 10s, it's almost like confirmed to them, because, they'll get the attention of someone who's either famous or someone who's way higher on the dating marketplace scale than they are. And so they think that they're at that level. In reality, ladies, I hate to tell you this, and I wish more people would be honest with you about this. You're not at their level. You're just someone they can sleep with that day, and then they're going to move on, and they're not going to think about you again. It is the truth about men that men can sleep with a hole in the ground and just keep about his business. Now, I'm not saying you're a hole in the ground, but I'm just saying men can. Men can sleep with anyone that's a 1 through a 10 and not have a second thought about them. That's just what it is. I understand that most women, you need to feel some sort of emotion before you're going to sleep with a man. That is not how men operate. And on top of that, men are completely willing to lie to you to get into your pants. So, they'll tell you, yeah, you're this, you're this, you're this, and where in reality, they just want to have some fun that night. Sad reality, but it is reality. Your value does not come from a man if he wants to sleep with you. In fact, that actually lowers your value, because part of your value is your purity. You may not like that. It is what it is. That's reality of the situation. Men prefer women with less bodies. Is it fair? Maybe in your eyes it's not. I don't see how it's fair that an average man can't pull an average woman. But again, both of those two things are reality. And so I'm not crying about it. That's just how things are. So, a value from a man comes if he puts a ring on your finger. If he asks you to marry him. That's the only way you can get value. Don't think that sleeping with a man will get you any sort of value. It doesn't. It lowers your value in most other guys' eyes. Do what you want. I'm not saying you have to do what I'm telling you. I'm not saying you have to believe a word I say. You can choose to do whatever you want. Understand that every choice you make has consequences. That's, again, a lesson that men learn a lot sooner than women seem to, for any number of reasons. So, that's the issue with delusion. And like I said before, like I said at the beginning of this, a 9 or a 10 asking for a man who makes 6 figures, who is 6 foot, is probably a reasonable request. Well, they think they're 9s or 10s, and so therefore it's reasonable. It's not. And this is just, all you're doing if you're not a 9 and a 10 and you're asking for that is you're eliminating yourself out of the dating marketplace. What do I mean by this? It's very, very simple. Let's pretend that you're a 5. You're asking for a man that makes, let's just say you're asking for a man that makes 6 figures or more a year. Let's forget about 6 foot for a second. That's like 8s, 9s, 10s. And actually that would be more than that amount. But let's say that's 8, 9s, 10s. You're a 5. That man sees that you're interested in him. And he's like, okay, well, maybe I'll be willing, but what do you bring to the table? I am the table. Congratulations, you've eliminated yourself. You are the table means I have absolutely nothing going for me, and I just expect this because I do, which shows that you're delusional and you're entitled, and quite honestly, men, especially successful men, don't need to or don't want to deal with that. So you've taken yourself out of the marketplace. And by the way, the guys that you could actually get, they're not making 6 figures or more. So you ignore them. Why are you even talking to me? Ew, you're gross. Get away from me. So you've completely taken yourself out of the marketplace. Now, for the women who go even further and will ask for more money, I've seen examples where women have said they want a man that makes $1 million or more a year. Some have said 25 million, and I'm just like, this one woman, I don't know if she was doing it for the memes. I hope she was, because it's so unrealistic. This woman, young woman, and maybe that unfortunately plays into it a little bit, wanted a man that was just out of university who is making 25 million or more a year and was over 6 foot. I hope she was memeing. I hope that was just her trolling. Honest to God, no man in their 20s is making that money. Basically no man in their 20s is making that money. Maybe there's one. Maybe. I doubt he's 6 foot. It just, the numbers are insane. Generally, if you're lucky enough to ever make that amount of money a year, you're doing it in your 40s and your 50s, because you have to build up to that point. So that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But a woman like that, a woman that, like, for instance, answers the question, oh, how much does a man have to spend on a wedding ring for you? If she says a crazy amount of money, that's a warning sign to most men. If they say, I've seen, watching that video, as I mentioned before, that was talking about, like, women who had these crazy expectations on dating sites. It's one woman, like, you have to have at least 2 cars off this list, and they're all like crazy expensive cars. You must have to have a house that's, X amount of room, X amount of bedrooms, X amount of bathrooms. It was a crazy list. What that tells a guy is she is more interested in his stuff than she is in him. And no man wants to marry a gold digger. They just don't. Because as soon as they're married, they now start to worry, how long is it before she goes and takes half of my stuff. And unfortunately, that's the whole thing with divorce. That's what happens. A lot of, well, not a lot of women, but a lot of these women that are asking for this amount are hoping that they're going to catch. They're one of 2 women, I think. They're either delusional to the point where they don't even understand what the reality of the dating marketplace is, and so I don't think they're acting nefariously. I think they're just sadly very delusional. The other type is what I think is a type of predator, and they are looking for a man to sweep off his feet, marry him, and then take half his stuff, and then they're set for life. I really do think it comes to that. So, ladies, if you want to believe you're a 10, that's your right. If you have these expectations, have these expectations. That's your choice. I warn you that I think is going to lead to your heartache, but you can see what happens, and hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully you find, Prince Charming who sweeps you off your feet. I don't think that's realistic or likely, but that's just my opinion. You're entitled to your own, and you can do whatever you want with your own life. When you start getting to the point where you're hitting the wall, and unfortunately the wall comes for a lot of women, it just does, in their early to mid 30s, they understand that their biological clock is ticking, they don't have a family yet, and they really want a family. One of two things happens. They realize that they've made a mistake with their expectations, or they get very bitter towards men. Ladies, these are your choices. Understand that. It has nothing to do with the men. You are the ones who are making these choices. I said at the beginning of this series, this entire series is all about, personal accountability and responsibility. So these are the choices you're making, and the results are therefore because of the choices you've made. It's not because all guys are dogs. It's not because all guys suck. It's because you made the choices you did. So I hope it doesn't happen for you. I hope everyone is successful. I hope they find the man of their dreams. I'm a realist. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for a lot of people. Unfortunate, sad, but it is true. But I am next week going to talk about what I would suggest doing if I was a woman, to try and maybe help find a man that will marry me. But that's next week. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.